There we go. Hi, my name is Ali Spalding. I'm the events marketing manager here at Prompt.io. Thank you for joining us today for From Text to Action, how UDW mobilizes members with peer-to-peer texting. We are going to talk about mobilization. We are going to talk about member engagement. And I'm really thrilled to have both of our panelists here today. Dan Arel is one of our incredible people here today. He's the director of comms at the United Domestic Workers, UDW AFSCME Local 3930, and an award-winning communications director dedicated to advancing workers' rights. He oversees digital organizing, press outreach, members comms, advocacy communication, ensuring that UDW's 200,000 home care and child providers have a powerful voice in the fight for justice. With a background in strategic messaging and movement building and mobilization, we are so thrilled to have him here as an influencer of policy and a strength in the labor movement. His work absolutely amplifies the stories of these caregivers and empowers them to advocate for fair wages, better working conditions, and just a better future. We're thrilled to have him, as well as Cody Bond, who is a former political field op and a current LGBTQIA activist. He has been with us at Prompt since 2020, so he knows his way around some peer-to-peer texting. He partners with strategists for progressive organizations across the nation, educating and advising on effective mobilization and texting best practices. He has worked with dozens of unions from small locals to national headquarters, finding innovative ways to expand and improve digital mobilization. We are thrilled to have both of them here with us today to talk about mobilizing that base and empowering those who we work for. So I am actually going to hand it right over to them because they are the experts. So from text to action, let's talk about UDW.
Great, thank you, and thanks for that wonderful introduction. I'm really happy to be here. Uh, before we kind of jump in, I'll give a quick overview. Like you heard, UDW represents more than 200,000 home care and family child care providers in California. Those workers are on the In-Home Supportive Services Program, which we call IHSS, which is a program that ensures that children and seniors and people living with disability that need home care are able to stay at home, either with their family or non-family, and the state pays IHSS providers to provide that care for them. And for our child care providers, the state has a similar program in which low-income families who need child care so they can return to work uh, can receive a subsidy from the state to help offset the ever-growing expense that we all know as childcare. And so, out of those 200,000 people we represent, we have about 110,000 dues-paying members. And our role here in California is obviously as a union to fight for fair wages and benefits, as well as workers' rights. And we also are very concerned with social justice. So uh, we are made up of more than 70% women and people of color. And, that means that in their communities, they face a lot of injustices that we see, from a workforce like home care and childcare providers who are often considered invisible. So, we really try to step into that role and make sure that they live in safe communities and have their needs and resources met.
Dan, it has been a pleasure to be a partner with you for the last couple of years. Thank you for all the work that you do. Tell us how you started using peer-to-peer texting.
Sure. So, we stumbled into peer-to-peer when looking for just new ways to connect with our members and didn't necessarily have a use case yet. We had this new platform and we were like, what do we do with it? How do we use it? Do our members care about texting? This was, 2018 doesn't seem that long ago, but in the scheme of like peer to peer and all of that, it really was. We were still doing a lot of mail back then. Like we were printing tons of letters and postcards, And then, something really tragic happened in California, which was the 2018 Camp Fire. Uh, I had to write down some notes because there's so many numbers about it. But, that was a fire that, for people that don't know, that it burned a little over 153,000 acres in Northern California.
Mm.
It claimed 85 lives, including a UDW member. And like the town of Paradise was completely wiped off the map. Like almost every inch of it was just devastated. And uh, we were scrambling to, how do we help? What do we do? What is our role here as a union when we have members who are fleeing? And we knew we couldn't necessarily call them because they were, who knows what kind of condition they were in. They were trying to get family out. They were trying to get their, you know, possessions out if they thought they could, and things like that. And we also knew email wasn't going to be very effective because who's checking their email at a time like that? And we came up with a strategy that we also didn't know exactly what they needed. Like what were the conditions that they were going through at that moment? And we thought, here's a chance. Here's this moment that we can send them a text that says, "This is your union. We hope you're okay. Do you need anything? Do you need help? What I and um, we sent the text out, and it allowed people to respond when they could and with what they needed. So people started responding like, "Yes, I just lost everything," or "No, I'm okay, but thank you so much for checking in." And sometimes those no's became yeses later. The situations were changing so fast. And we didn't have much to offer them at that moment. We were still information gathering for the most part, but we started getting, the "I lost everything. I don't have clothes. Where do I go?" Like, and so we were able to build a web page that had resources and evacuation sites that we could then text back to and give them more info. Or if we knew where they were, just text them back that link. And we were able to start gathering info that people needed food and clothing. And so
Right.
we made a call out to community partners, got those kind of items that we needed, and then used our offices to say, "Come to the UDW office, get some clothes for you and your family. Come get some food."
Mm.
And it became a real life-changing touch point with our members.
Right. Because how many members are rural across California? So many people spread across the entire state.
Yeah, for us, you're talking tens of thousands in the rural areas.
Right.
Obviously the majority of our membership is made up of San Diego, Riverside,
Mhm.
Orange County, but you know, when you think of underserved areas across the state, the more rural you get, the more like, you start to think these people don't have a lot around them. And so we've
Mm.
got, thousands to tens of thousands of members, and they live near nothing. And so
Yeah.
now they're like, what do I do? Who can help me? And yeah, it created that really like beautiful touch point, honestly, in which we were able to reach people that we didn't have a way to before.
Yeah. Especially in moments of urgency, people who are spread out, people who don't have, resources close to them, they need that sort of immediate communication, um, that really only texting can provide. Like, where else are you going to be looking except for your phone in those emergency situations?
Yeah, to add to that, to put a little context into UDW as well, like, I mentioned that we represent 200,000 people, but unlike a lot of unions, that means we have 200,000 work sites. So we can't just roll up to a factory or a warehouse and have a membership there to talk to. These people work from their homes. And so we don't have a central location. We have 200,000 unique work sites. So we can't just like, to roll up and visit is very difficult.
Right? Especially when you're talking about home care, where a lot of times people are homebound, like that is, um, they are really stuck there. Well, tell us what you've learned kind of since that catalyst. How has texting grown? How has it evolved, with the needs of the union?
You know, from that point on, it really did change our communication style. It opened us up to have those one-way conversations, which are so important in labor organizing. Uh, too often, we can think, oh, we'll just send out a mailer and that's our communication. But as any labor organizer would tell you, it's conversations make a difference. And again, with 200,000 work sites, we do our best to visit as many homes as possible and meet our members at membership meetings. But Cody, you just said it best. There's some people that can't. They can't leave their client long enough to come to a membership meeting or come to an event, and they can't bring their client with them. So they're in this position in which they kind of become isolated from each other, and they don't know their workers as well, and they can build that relationship with their organizer and have that communication and figure out what the union's up to and what we're doing. And uh, using that really changed just what it meant to organize. And I think
Mm,
one thing that it did is we looked at immediately where are we not using this that we could be? What is it that we're not doing? And uh, I think I've brought it up to you many times, Cody. Membership meetings became a focal point, and so we're talking again,
mm,
same area, like we call District Six, but up in Northern California, you have a spread out membership, and we're sending them an email saying, please come to a membership meeting. And we're sending them a postcard inviting them. And we're getting okay turnout. It's not bad, but it's not phenomenal. You come down to Orange
right.
County and you may have 300 to 500 people at a membership meeting. And you go up to the northern area and you have like 50. But we have so
Yeah,
many
very
members up
different.
there. Very different. And, peer to peer changed that.
Yeah.
Um,
How have you seen engagement change, especially in those areas?
so, using the continue on the membership meeting metaphor here, like I said, like you go up and you get 50 to 60, and one of our managers up in that northern region asked, could we use this to invite people to a membership meeting? And I said, well, sure. Like if we ask if they want to come, they say yes. We give them the details, uh, and we sent out that very first prompt to try it, and suddenly, responses start coming in. Yes, I'll be there. Yes, I'll be there. And, people maybe had some questions like, what's going to be happening there? And we could have that combo, which you don't have via email. You don't have that
Yeah,
via a postcard. They see it and they go, oh, I don't need to go to this. And they put it aside. Now they're
right.
saying, why? And we're telling them and they go, oh, I'll be there. And uh, the day after that meeting, that manager called me and said that was the largest turnout we've ever had for membership meeting. And they had well over 100 people there, and they've never had that happen
Yeah.
before. And now it's the norm. Like very few membership meetings take place in at UDW without a prompt campaign being attached to it.
And do you feel like texting was well received by the members? I feel like a lot of, especially smaller locals, um, and folks who particularly have memberships with a much older demographic, feel like, oh, well, my members won't want to be texted, or this feels like a violation. How was it received by your members?
Immediately, overwhelmingly positive. Um, I think, in fact, our members welcomed it, and we fell into that same trap. Prior to COVID, we would have told you there's no way texting's going to work. Like our members aren't going to get on Zoom, all those things. We would have said
Yeah.
no. And then, COVID hit, and we were left with no option. And
Mm,
overwhelmingly, everyone was there. We had membership meetings on Zoom that were huge, and so we had to rethink. We're wrong about our membership. They are on cell phones. And the wonderful thing about texting is you don't need the fanciest phone to do it.
yeah.
So, they can have an older phone or a less flashy phone, and they're going to get your text message, and it doesn't have to, it's nothing special to reply yes or no
Yeah.
or like, and so right away we started getting responses, and the engagement has just stayed high ever since. And it, as far as I'm concerned, it rivals email. We probably
Mm,
have more email addresses, but
yeah.
we don't get a huge opt-out rate in texts. I would say no different than we would expect to get via email. And so
Mm,
it stays an open dialogue. And, with like that, the prompt feature that we love, that we can use the same phone number per region, but
Yeah.
there becomes a familiarity. People know that text is coming from us, and they know the person on the other end, and they have that connection. And so now, it just becomes a dialogue rather than, oh, they're just talking at me.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll definitely get into some best practices and the necessity of keeping the conversation open. Like, just because you're sending a text to remind them of something doesn't mean that you stop looking to see if
Right.
they are texting back. Like, if your members are texting back, okay, now you are engaging in a conversation. Leaving them on red is not a best practice. I would love to talk about some other use cases that have come up. Obviously, during times of emergency, we have bred the necessity for texting. But now that it's grown, it's being used in a number of ways for UDW, and feel like you're thinking of new ways to use it this coming year too. How how has that grown? What else are you using it for now?
So I almost everything that we could possibly think of doing has a prop campaign to it, and that includes. So we've already talked. Welfare checks and the campfires. There's multiple fires a year here in California, and we use it for almost all of them. Those that watch the news know that last summer we had devastating floods here in San Diego. We use that to keep in touch with them. We touched the membership meetings, and then elections have been massive. So, it was even during COVID while we were all working from home. Uh, there was a whole recall campaign here in California to recall Governor Newsom. And, you know, say what you want about Governor Newsom, he has been a champion of labor and especially of UDW. And
Yeah.
we knew that call to remove him could be devastating for our workers. Uh, you know, a program like ours, which serves, women and people of color, is often the first one on the chopping block when budgets are talked about. We've always, Newsom's always defended our work. And so we knew we couldn't stand by and let him get recalled. But we also knew there was work to do because, the propaganda machine was out working overtime. And we were able to register, tens of thousands of people to vote to make sure they were voting. That's information we can get about our members is who's registered and who's not. And we started reaching out to
Yeah.
all of the non-registered voters. We were able to share the information about why we needed to stop this recall. Again, having those conversations when they had questions. And then during the election itself, we were able to ballot chase. Hey, send
Mm.
out a text that says, we've noticed you haven't returned your ballot. Um, can we ensure you return it? And a lot of people say, "Oh, I did. I mailed it yesterday," or "Oh my God, thank you so much for that reminder. I'll send it today." And some people said, "Why? Why should I vote?" And we were able to again engage in that
Mm.
conversation and talk about why it's important to our union. And he flew through that campaign with ease and called UDW immediately and thanked us and said, if it wasn't for
Wow.
UDW, I don't know that I'd still be in office. Um, and I think peer-to-peer texting was one of the largest platforms we used through that entire campaign. Uh, we use it currently even to make sure that members are signing their card. Using that unique link feature where we can make sure every single person gets a link that's tailored to their account. We're able to send them their membership card if they're missing a signature or something's out of date,
Mm.
or we've gone through a whole orientation with them and they still haven't signed. Hey, we just wanted to reach out and send you your card to finish your sign up process. And they've been able to click the link, get in there and sign their card. So it's helped with literally growing our members. Uh, and then, that legislative action kind of follows along that same idea of
Right.
Newsom is we need you to take an action now. We are on the budget. They do want to cut hours to IHSS care. They want to do this thing uh, that's going to weaken the program. Call. Can you call your legislator right now and let them know to vote no or yes or whatever it is that we need them to do? Um,
Right.
this platform allows us that connection.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about the use cases, things that are kind of essential for the action on the end of the member. Um, but also ways that you can use it internally, keeping records up to date. Sometimes getting a hold of members is difficult, asking them to update their information, make sure you have the right email address, make sure you have the right address, mailing address. Um, have you started using it to update your systems internally as well?
So it's a really key like feature is that if you have someone's wrong email address, you can't email them and ask them to update it. Um, and so this feature allows us that ability to just hey, we're just checking in to make sure we have the most updated info, and they can respond back with just their email address, and we can keep our records up to date. It really helps a ton with language assessment
Mm,
and like even voter status. We were able to identify some folks that were ineligible to vote, and so we could kind of take them off records like that. Uh, we were able to find out some people's party preference that we didn't have. Uh, there's a lot of internal info that you can gather that you don't get from your membership card. Um, we're fortunate we get a lot of that info from the state since we work directly with the state, but
right.
it's not always complete. And these give us the ability to complete membership information. Uh, a unique use case to us is that you may live in a county we don't represent in California. So we represent 45 counties in California, but there's a lot more than that.
Mm,
But if you provide care in another county, we represent you. And so sometimes that's missing information we don't have. And so we might not be reaching out to you if you live in Los Angeles and we don't represent Los Angeles. If we're not emailing or mailing people in Los Angeles, you miss out. This allows us to plug in those holes, and it's so simple to do, and it just tightens up our data. And anybody that works in labor knows data is critical to your communications. And so the more we have, the tighter that is, the more successful we are in targeting. And that came in big time handy during the 2024 election here. Is the more data we had,
yeah,
the more successful we could be in winning local races.
yeah. I know that Tom and I are going to be kind of talking through um, exactly how you use prompts, not just like best practices, making sure that you are um, engaging with your members, but also just how you can be efficient internally to make sure that members are getting the communication when they need it, and making sure that who needs to get that information is getting it. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about those best practices, how you can actually use prompts. We're also joined here by another UDW member or staff member, Tom, who runs a lot of their programs and is working internally with prompts. Um, so best practices, we've kind of touched on it a couple of times, but making sure that you are engaging with the members on a personal basis, having those one-to-one communications, you should know their name and they should know your name. And uh, that phone number is saved within prompts and it can be saved in their phone. Um, Tom, I don't know how much you get of just inbound questions that aren't even being prompted by like a broadcast that you send out. Um, but
You get a
I'll
few.
I'll let you talk on it.
You get a few for sure.
Yeah. So making sure that people feel like this is actually a form of communication that is personal. And a huge part of that is segmenting the list so that the right people are getting the right information, right? Somebody up in rural North California does not need to be getting the flood information that somebody down in San Diego is getting. So segmenting your list properly is going to be really important for that. Um, Talking a little bit about how it's going to expand, I know a few of our features have kind of really changed the way that y'all use texting. Tom, I would love to hear about kind of how your peer-to-peer strategy has changed just based off of what you're able to do internally um, with, languages and list segmentation.
Sure. Well, obviously, using the list segmentation, we can target based on of people's, individual languages. We find that it's especially popular among Spanish speakers. We have a much actually higher engagement rate with people who speak Spanish. Um, and it's been really useful for finding the particular ways in which people respond to particular messaging. I'll give an example. Um, we used to ask, if someone's going to come to a membership meeting, hey, we're having a membership meeting on this day and time, will you join? And what we found is that people kind of mistook that as us like asking them to join the union, even if they're already a member or something like that. And so by monitoring the way people are actually responding to our messaging, we then changed the actual language we use in the text. And then we asked, are you attending? And we can do the same thing with Spanish and to a lesser extent, Vietnamese. I can't read Vietnamese, so I haven't been able to do that yet. But it's been really useful for the kind of qualitative analysis of like, okay, well, how do these two different populations actually respond to this different kinds of messaging?
I think we'll start walking through kind of how you set up a broadcast in prompt. I know that we have a number of attendees who are from other unions that may use a different system. So I think just walking through how you've set things up within prompts could be helpful for them. So starting with the list segmentation, you no longer have to go to a data manager to break down lists to make sure you're getting the accurate audience. You can segment within prompts as you're choosing your list. It could just be a master list and then targeting that list with either tags or just data that could be stored. You can upload any piece of information into prompts. There's no data conformity restrictions. So if there is a header on a CSV file, you can upload it. A new data set is created and filled. And so you could use that data here to segment those lists. Tom, how have what sort of tags have you used? Because I know you have hundreds of pages of them.
Thousands. Yeah. So we upload once a month just a master list of everybody, one for the home care side, one for the child care side. Um, just for targeting purposes, all our geographic info is stored as tags, which is why we have like 28,000 pages worth of tags because of all the zip codes and things like that. And then our data is things like membership type or language, that kind of thing. Um, so that's the main way we use that. And then we just kind of filter out using tags to get, down to the right audience list that we're looking for. That's the basics of it. Obviously, it can get more complicated as you
Yeah.
build up campaigns. But that's the main way we do it, is a master list. Here's our data. Like you said, we don't have to go somewhere else and get the data. We can just upload it ourselves, which is seriously so nice. We can make our own fields, make them say whatever it is we want them to say. So it's just really useful for that targeting and data manipulation. It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will
And
add
then,
to that
oh yeah,
if you don't mind. I would tell anybody using it, like, don't shy away from adding data because you don't know when you're going to need it. Because we talk so much about the elections, if California's not alone here, like congressional districts, Senate districts, like board of supervisor districts, knowing that and being able to target that is a time saver. Because like you said, someone in Northern California doesn't want to know about if they need help for the flood in San Diego. I don't want to be texting the wrong person in the wrong district to vote for somebody who they can't vote for. And not having to go generate a list every time. But, we often think, oh, we don't need that data. Let's not upload it. But then suddenly you need it and you have to do another upload. Put the data in there. If you have it, upload it, target it, use it.
Yeah, super helpful. And I know for the next step in the process, yeah, it looks like we may have skipped on here. But knowing that, since we've touched on it a couple of times, that you can channel lock your contacts, right? So you can have a bunch of different numbers with different area codes. And then when you select the channel, you know that that person is getting a text from the same number that they've already received, right? So they're not going to get a different text or a different thread within their phone. You could select all the channels and it will remember which contact has been texted from which number.
And to actually
Yeah.
add on that, the way I have it broken down, we have 10, I think 10 phone numbers in prompt. There's like a main number and then one for each district. So not only do we have it, locked to those that contact list, but I also have it set up kind of on the back end where employees, say in District 6 up north, will never see a prompt from District 1, so that you don't get kind of weird crossover where people get confused about what it is doing. It makes it also really, really easy for the employees to know, oh, okay, I'm seeing this. I know I'm supposed to see this, and
Right.
then
Right.
And
Yeah.
honestly,
There's
channels need to be. And sorry to interrupt. During the election, like how many text messages did you get from every single campaign? And then you would get like even like from Kamala's campaign, I would get 4 different phone numbers from 4 different groups. They stopped standing out. Yet UDW, we still found success in our text because it's the same number they're used to. It's coming. A lot of them have by now have saved us in their phone, and so we're not competing with all these different campaigns at the same time because we've built that relationship and that familiarity that cannot be understated, because you don't want somebody opting out of your text because they're tired of texts.
Right.
Like they go, oh, that's my union, and they leave it alone.
Right. Especially during election season, the GOTV efforts that you put in are just as important as your normal member communication, but how do you make it look and feel different than all of the other political texts that they're
Exactly.
getting? They've already seen that phone number. Next step in setting up the broadcast, we do allow for peer-to-peer and A2P messages. And for those, you can schedule them out in advance. So helpful if you have a membership meeting coming up. You can schedule out the message to send the reminder, right? You don't have to do it right that day. You can set it up in advance when your locals give you the notice that they're going to be holding the meeting. Then creating the message using field merge. So this is where all of that data can now be used, right? So depending on a person's district, depending on their location, their union, local, you can use that information here just using the field merge button. There are a number of other features that we could highlight here. I think Tom mentioned one earlier, which is the smart links, kind of the unique identifying URLs that you can insert here, and as well as MMS, so you can be sending pictures and videos. I'm not quite sure how much you're utilizing pictures and videos on the UDW side, but I do know that you use the smart links quite a bit. And then next, this is where folks can actually have those one-to-one conversations, right? So this is another great feature, which is the pre-scripted response libraries that you can then put into unique folders for each broadcast, right? So this is really great when you are working with locals. You can set this kind of up for them, and right, they only have permission to go into this conversation. And then they can see all of these different responses that they could send out during that conversation. How different does this seem, Tom, than other platforms that you've seen? This one-to-one communication here. How much easier is it for your other locals to come in and start texting because of kind of the unique permission sets that you can set?
It's way easier, actually. It's very point and click kind of, and it's very clear what is being said. Like it says here on the screen, interested in renewing, not interested in renewing. One thing I actually don't see on the screen, but at the bottom, usually there's like a little quick command button. So when someone's in there, they just say, yes, I hit yes. For us, we tag all of our responses again, which is why we have 28,000 pages of tags. So if someone says yes, to come to a meeting, we tag that person as yes, which then makes it really easy because we can then send those follow-up requests really, really easily. We can download those lists of people and give them a call. Hey, you said you're going to come to the meeting on Monday. Are you still going to meeting? Use it for all kinds of things. The library function is really great, especially as you're building out something maybe that's a bit more complex where there's like steps to it.
Right.
It's not yes or no. I color code everything. You got green and red. I like to use blue and orange and all kinds of stuff. So
yeah. And then the next slide will show kind of how you can start using those retargeting. So once you get into the analytics view, being able to see who hasn't responded, who clicked on the links, who replied, like you said, you can just automate a lot of the tags. And then you can go into this analytics view and retarget based off of the actions that those members took. Makes it a lot more efficient when you're creating new broadcasts or you have follow-up messages to send.
And this was very helpful during the election again, is will vote. Like, yes, I'm so sorry I haven't voted yet, but I'll do it soon. We were able to tag that person as a will vote and then retarget knowing we need to follow. Hey, you said you'd be voting. Did you? Like,
Yeah.
click the link, took an action. Those become critical to a successful campaign because if someone says they're going to do something and you don't follow up with them, there's a good chance they don't do it.
Right. Right. I think I will open up now the attendees for some Q&A. If anybody needs to drop, I would really like this to be kind of an open conversation. So feel free if you don't have the time, but yeah, we'll open it up now.
We actually have 2 questions already in the chat. So I'd love to go ahead and answer those. The first was, do you see more response rates for event-based messages or more question-based messages like surveys and check-ins?
I will, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think event-based is generally a big because our members are generally pretty amped and ready to come to an event. We I don't think either of you have been to a UDW membership meeting yet, but if you ever get the chance, they are parties. And our members know it and they want to come. They have a great time. We do giveaways. There's always food. And so we know that a lot of our members are waiting for that. And so we get a really great response. But I don't want to downplay, like, if we're messaging them, asking them questions. Like, our response rates across the board are just like, we're always so happy with them that, like, it's not to the point where we say, oh, wow, we shouldn't message about that anymore because we only get responses here. But for us, membership meetings are something our members do look forward to. And so we expect a high rate of those.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think again, you really are hitting them exactly where they need to be and giving them all that additional information. It's a really clearly a symbiotic relationship with your members, which is great. And then also someone asked, what are the ways that you've been able to fill gaps in the lists and get accurate contact numbers for members?
I'll jump in again. Sorry, Tom.
It's fine.
So with contact numbers, we're very fortunate. Like we get that info directly from the state when they fill out their IHSS application. So as far as like contact numbers, we don't generally have to do a lot of work there. Um, but what we didn't used to get from the state, and this was peer-to-peer was a lifesaver when this happened. We did not used to get their accurate language information. And I brought this up earlier. And so if you imagine we were sending out our list to a third party to help language match. And the one thing that does is a lot of racism because they tend to match based on last name. So your last name sounds Spanish or it sounds Vietnamese. We're just going to tag you as that. And so we would send a prompt or an email in Spanish to somebody and we get the response being like, I don't speak Spanish. Or that we get one that said, I don't speak English. And for a long time, we couldn't just get that info. And so we used peer to peer. We reached out and asked them language preference, and we're able to update our lists immediately. And that really led to better communication because a trade secret here is not really a secret, but and it's a sad truth that if you message an English speaker and put Spanish on it, there's more of a negative response rate than if you
Mhm.
send Spanish and English to a Spanish speaker. They're used to that, and so they accept it. Um, I'm sorry it's that way. It shouldn't be, but if you want to be better at communications, you have to know those kinds of things and kind of reach out to folks in that way. And having that correct info on their language is paramount. And then I already mentioned it, but we saw the same with figuring out, are you a Republican, Democrat, or independent? That matters how you talk to people. Messaging isn't across the board. And so having that info, and that's something we can get by reaching out and even just asking. Sometimes you don't even have to, you don't have to be coy about it. Like, ooh, who did you vote for? Just what are you one of these? And they'll tell you.
Fantastic. I think again, I, I've learned so much just from your end and listening to your stories. And I know that our viewers have as well. And I'm really excited to see, where you all continue and grow. I think UDW, especially on the prompt end, we're so grateful and excited to see what you guys use next or what we can build for you next. If anybody has any questions, you are more than welcome to contact Cody or Dan. Both of their information are up on the screen right now. And I am going to wrap this out just so that everybody gets a little bit of their afternoon back. But again, from Prompt, we'd just like to say a huge thank you to UDW. This has been such an informational and inspiring conversation. I think people are interested in how they can really mobilize, and this has been incredibly helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Allie. And thanks, Dan and
Yeah.
Tom.
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks,
Thank you
Dan.
for having
Thanks,
us.
Tom. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to send them both a chat either on LinkedIn or email. And we are super grateful that everyone attended, and we will be ending shortly.